Great to see you again and welcome back, everyone. I'm Vladislav Novikov, and today I'm joined by Yuri Rashkin, host of the YouTube channel Rashkin Report and local elected official in the state of Wisconsin. Yuri, really glad to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me.
So, Russia wants to keep advancing while Trump says he wants peace. Those goals clearly don't match. Still, talks are scheduled for Wednesday. Could this lead to a ceasefire?
It seems that the talks in the context of this horrible war are very performative piece of stagecraft that is done mostly for the benefit of one viewer, Donald Trump. And I think that is an interesting fact that is acknowledged pretty much by both sides here, Russia and Ukraine. That this is all done for Donald Trump. If he wants to show that he is the world peacemaker, then it's best to follow his suit, because while it's difficult to for Russia to break and to ruin its relations with Trump, because Donald Trump seems to be in love and enamored or fearful of Vladimir Putin. At the same time, they see, I think, both sides, Russia as well as Ukraine, that Trump is generally unstable. And if there is a desire to show that Russia is following the rules, it makes sense for Trump. It makes sense on the kind of a worldwide picture of events, because look, for anybody who is asking, yes, here's Russia being present at negotiations, but it's not planning on ending the war other than by capturing Ukraine or by having Ukraine agree to whatever its terms may be so that it could violate them a second later. Because we know that's how Russia operates. So basically, Russia wants what it wants, and it's not willing to stop and to settle. And Trump may want to. He sees himself against as that peacemaker, but Ukraine at the same time is not willing to capitulate. So you have these two parties that are really not interested in peace on the terms, and they're not ready to sit down at the negotiation table for different reasons, and it's being done clearly so that they could say to Donald Trump, look, we're trying. It's the other guys who are not doing anything. And of course, I think it's important to remember that the last time they had negotiations is the day before, is when Ukraine had executed its famous, now famous Operation Spiderweb, which I think should make all Russian delegations nervous about setting any future dates for negotiations, because you just don't know what's going to fly out of what suitcase and bite you, and you don't know where. Especially when it's being done right the night before Christmas. I mean, the night before negotiations. So there's a certain dance and style to this that doesn't necessarily have to do with ending the war, but almost stinging the other in the eye right before a nice picture is being taken.
Okay, Condoleezza Rice called Trump's ultimatum a turning point. But here in Ukraine, not everyone shares that view.
It's very, I don't want to say troubling, because I don't know that it even matters. But these various statements by Republican-leaning and or just people who want to be somehow viewed by this administration seriously, they're trying to position what this administration does as somehow fitting the goals of these people. Like Condoleezza Rice would like to see a stronger United States, so she's going to take statements by Donald Trump that she can use to justify this point of view, to make these kinds of statements like he's on her side. This reminds me a little bit of, as I recall, as a child in the Soviet Union, hearing people who have survived the college process, is that you could justify almost any idea if you could find a quote from Marx or Lenin saying that this was a good thing. So Condoleezza Rice saying, look, Donald Trump, this is a turning point, it's a significant thing. Yes, but we also have to acknowledge that Donald Trump is a specialist in words, not really action so much, because saying things is what he's been doing with Putin, but he's not able to even put tariffs on Russia that he has put on Ukraine. So to say that he is upset at Putin now, okay, well then maybe he should stop, at least start by not blaming his wife for telling him the truth. I mean, on one hand, it's hilarious that there's somebody apparently in the Trump household that watches news. On the other hand, it's pretty clear that Melania Trump is not really present, according to Trump's own biographer, that she's not around. So he's like just blaming her for things. He's not able to really say things that are strongly against Putin. Trump can drop F-bombs on Ukraine, on Iran, on Israel, on Republican Party, on MAGA, but not on Putin. Putin is, he has survived such horrible things. Anyway, so I think Condoleezza Rice and her wishful thinking about this being a turning point is nothing more but wishful thinking. I would like to believe her. I think that she has good intentions and she speaks Russian and plays the piano. So I think, she's got several things that, deserve pity and sympathy. But I think that she still is saying things that are absolutely not true, because we need to see actions. And so far, it's just words.
Yeah, okay. Republican Don Bacon says First Lady Melania Trump keeps pushing her husband to change his position on Russia. As a journalist and as a man, I honestly have to ask, how on earth does Mr. Bacon even know that? I mean, it sounds like a fake story, doesn't it?
It does, but I think faith is the last refuge of scoundrels. No, religion. No, I don't want to get the quote wrong, but I think pretty highly of Representative Bacon, who I hear might be running for governor of Nebraska. So more power to him, because I just don't know how he can help Ukraine as governor of Nebraska. Probably not much more than the mayor of New York can affect policy on Israel. But whatever. I think Don Bacon, speaking about Melania Trump, is a very interesting point, because who is Melania? Melania is like this is a collective imaginary friend of Donald Trump. Somehow he learns that Putin is bombing Ukraine, not from Tulsi Gabbard, not from John Ratcliffe, not from Cash, I don't know, anybody. He's got a lot of people who are supposed to let him know this kind of stuff. And somehow it's Melania. Now, does it mean that she's being thrown under the bus because when Putin is going to be upset, Trump's going to be like, hey, my wife just said, it's not me, that's her. She said I have to go home, guys. I'm totally fine with everything. Or is this because nobody else around him in his intelligence community can tell him a bad news about Russia? Oh, yes, Mr. Trump, exactly like you said. Oh, Putin's listening to you. All is quiet in Ukraine. Who knows, but it sends a whole bunch of bad messages, especially, like I said, when it seems pretty clear that actual Melania is nowhere to be found. So this seems like a very magical character that is being used to justify different things, in which case, yes, why not pray to the holy Melania, maybe buy a candle somewhere, maybe, and just whenever there's certain rules in this Trump world. So whenever there's anything bad, that's not Trump's fault. When there's anything good happening, that's the Trump's credit. And when we need to ask for some higher power intervention, somebody should do something, we can just say, won't Melania listen to us?
Okay, and one more interesting news. Senator Graham saying Putin U-turn is coming. Trump's tired of this game and he is ready to kick your ass. Okay, do you think Putin has actually scared by that?
Well, it's hard for me to tell you what Putin might be thinking and how hard scared he might be, but just watching mostly Senator Graham and his track record of success and influence, I don't know why Putin should be scared. Because Senator Graham is showing himself to be really mostly interested in surviving in this new MAGA world. where he's trying to be close to president and not get swept away, and to show himself as this magical, mystical hawk, he should probably say, Melania would agree with me. And then probably she would. Who knows? Nobody knows. And his statements threatening Putin with the sanctions and with what Trump might do seem like baseless statements that are not directed at Putin. They're directed at the one person that everything said on Fox News is directed to. Donald Trump. Like, imagine if you're watching, this is some kind of a weird Truman Show variation where everybody's trying to get on that news channel so the president would see them. And what does Senator Graham do? He says, you know what? President Trump, he's strong like Scotty Scheffler, who is currently, the most famous golfer in the world at the moment. We know Trump cares about golf. So if this was a threat for Putin, then he probably should compare Donald Trump to some famous hockey player or some famous KGB agent. Say that, whatever. But he didn't. He compared, Lindsey Graham compared Donald Trump to a famous golfer and with a record of accomplishment, who also is very different from Donald Trump because he's strategically minded, he's quiet, and he's man of family and faith. None of which, strikes me as a quality of Donald Trump, but that's not the point. Lindsey Graham is not involved in diplomacy. He's involved in the brown nosing here. And he's just trying to send a message that you're strong, I'm with you, and this is great. And to threaten Putin, do you think that Trump is actually going? We discussed this many times, and our listeners and viewers know that these threats seem to go nowhere. It's only 2 more weeks, 50 more days. We can have a calendar of these dates of Trump. But it's Senator Graham who I think should be worried, because there's a very famous late night comedy show host, Stephen Colbert, who was just through efforts of Trump administration out of a job in a year. And he's going to be fine. TV's in trouble. Stephen Colbert is going to be fine. And Stephen Colbert actually hails from South Carolina. And he has a fair amount of interest in politics. And there's some, ideas that he could run for Senate against Senator Lindsey Graham. And I think he could be funnier and just much better human being than the current occupant of that seat. And it definitely make Lindsey Graham very nervous. And maybe we'll pull him to the left. Maybe Lindsey Graham will say, hey, I never supported Trump. I really am a very cool dude, and I am always been for Ukraine. Then why are you voting against Ukraine when he voted against the last $60 billion package that was the aid to Ukraine? Because partisan interests are number one, and Donald Trump is above all. I mean, the actions speak for themselves.
Okay, I think we have one more player. I talk about China. A meeting between Putin and Trump in Beijing this September is possible if the US president visits China, according to the Kremlin. Do you think that could actually happen?
We have to admit that everything that is happening in American politics at this moment, and for the last 2 weeks at least, has been an attempt by President Donald Trump to shift attention from the Epstein case, because that is the reality that he is dealing with. Everything that he comes up with is being looked and scrutinized as an attempt to shift away attention from this one topic. Well, I think the best way to shift attention would be to either go to Ukraine, or give major military aid to Ukraine, striking Putin. I think getting rid of Putin would really shift attention from, his base would hate him anyway. But currently, really, he lost favor and touch with 80 or 90% of people, according to polls, are not happy with the amount of coverage and his actions on the Epstein case. So this is a big, big problem for him. Can he go to China and ask for political asylum there? Yes, but he'll probably do that in Russia. So I think that this meeting also runs into the idea of sanctions, because that meeting in China, should it occur, is going to take place a few days after the 50-day mark that Trump set for Putin. So how is that going to work? Well, my guess is that Trump will just give Putin 2 more weeks, during which he can go to China. But that really gets in the way of these 500 or 100% tariffs on China, because you don't announce 500% tariffs on the person that you're about to visit. Although I just heard that administration announced that they're going to charge now $250 fee for anybody who wants to enter the United States, which is clearly like a poll tax, just making it difficult for people to get in the United States. So like it was difficult for people to vote because they had to pay poll tax, which was found to be unconstitutional. But moving on, I think that this trip to China and the desire of Trump and Putin and Xi to potentially create the second Yalta and divide the world in 3 parts. First of all, it seems to be not happening because of Ukraine. And that's important to me to acknowledge, because without Ukraine being there, those 3 characters would have gotten together by now and would have talked and continued. But the second part is, it is not entirely clear what is that the agreement that they really are going for, because when you have 2 egomaniacs, it's already hard to come to an agreement. When you have 3, that sounds like a recipe for potential disaster. But nonetheless, I mean, we can see that Donald Trump might want Canada and Greenland, and Russia might want Ukraine. But what does China want? Taiwan? Maybe they want Siberia too, because there's a lot of Chinese people there. So this could get kind of uncomfortable in a hurry. And but at the same time, this is a very troubling step and a troubling development. And thank you to the heroic people of Ukraine who continue to stand in the way of these 3, I would say, villains more fully embracing each other, and then moving the world further to World War III, which is what likely happens when you have tyrants and despots trying to divide the world into pieces. We saw this with Stalin and Hitler, and I think it should worry anybody else, anybody who is looking at the situation today.
Okay, if we talk about sanction and EU, is the EU stuck between pressure from both China and the US?
I think EU is pretty much the one opponent that everybody can agree on, because whether it is Chinese economic influence or Russian political influence, or the competition that it provides for United States, it's a problem for all 3 of these guys, because one of the simplest ways to make America great again is to destroy everybody else, and the nearest competition would be EU. So it would be another way to make America great again by comparison. I had this similar feeling when I moved to the state of Wisconsin from the state of Utah, where I looked around and I went, oh, I think I just lost some weight. So I think that's, Compare-a-Slim, as was called on Saturday Night Live many years ago. I think that the United States in this situation are looking at a very difficult path forward that's going to lie through next elections and all the problems in between. Right now, we're hearing that Mike Johnson just shut down the House of Representatives so they don't by accident vote on the Epstein case. So there's an interesting shutdown of our government that we're observing practically in front of our eyes. And as Europe is getting sort of a permission from Trump to help Ukraine, we see at the same time that the EU is basically going into a trade war with the United States. And trade war is costly. It's going to limit opportunities for other things, because Europe is going to have to spend money on dealing with the trade war. That means it's going to be harder to support Ukraine, and Trump understands that. And I think that's one of the ways that he's helping Putin provide more pressure for Ukraine to capitulate, because the 50 days that was given, it wasn't just given to Putin, it was also given to Trump to provide the pressure on Ukraine for Ukraine to accept any agreement on Putin's terms. So I think that providing pressure on EU via trade war and all of is part of that deal. I think it's just also interesting to see that the fire Epstein case being the grenade that was thrown in there by Elon Musk is now exploding and then burning up and then just destroying this the scene, probably as Elon Musk anticipated it would. but maybe with just a slightly unpredictable set of consequences.
So, Yuri, thank you. It's interesting with you, as always. Also, viewers, go to Yuri's channel and subscribe.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of channels. If you speak Russian, subscribe to Rashkin Report. But if you speak English, then subscribe to Rashkin Report in English. And I would very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, see you next time.
See you.